So excited to have you on. This was like a last minute. We were just saying that last minute we wanted to do a show because number one, I was reading your story and I'm like, this is my story. I was reading some of the bio. I'm like, that sounds a lot like me, humble beginnings, all that stuff. But oh my gosh, say hello, tell our viewers and everyone where the heck you're from, who the heck you are. And let's
Oh
do
my
this.
goodness. Well, my name is Barb Pitcock. Like Shylo said, I remember the first time I ever heard you speak. I was at a Most Powerful Women event, and I was probably the least powerful at the time. I was absolutely broken. So humbling. Just to be on with you, and how we met is just a crazy story, but nothing happens by coincidence. So I'm at a little town of Russell, Kansas, and it's got no claim to fame other than Bob Dole was born and raised here. And today, the little town I live in, which is a couple stoplights, less than, I mean, 2,000 people would be an optimist putting that on our population sign. But today, the town was definitely in the news with the funeral of Bob Dole in his late 90s. And really, it's a farming community. There's not a lot of opportunity out here. Oil and farming, which has really taken a hit this year. And so, Dave and I were both born and raised here. I'm the oldest of five. Dave only had one sibling and raised by single moms. And definitely learned from the School of Hard Knocks. Neither one of us have a college education. Well, Dave did. He was going to school and got a full ride baseball scholarship, fell in love with riding bulls, and left college and became a professional bull rider. And I just went to beauty school, and so we're just really small town, humble beginning kind of people. And like today, show when we decided to do this, I had a 6-hour drive. Like there isn't a city within hours of us. And so I was just driving home as quick as I could to jump on here with you, and very privileged to be your guest.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited. So it says from bankrupt to beautician. I love that. You're also an author. We need to highlight that. You and your husband both have your own books. Incredible story. You're in the network marketing space. But we have had all these other connections. I mean, we should have known each other way longer than this. It's incredible how you saw me at a women's event. We connected today through some other things, and it was like poof magic, very definitely. I relate to you in many ways of your story. I also come from humble beginnings. Everybody who's listened to my story on here, small town, maybe 1,500. I would say there was more bars than gas stations. It's a railroad town. I know I'm from a railroad town. I also married a professional racer at one point in my life, or a professional athlete. And I definitely know that lifestyle as well. Bull riding, how cool is that? But Midwest, we're both Midwesterners. So we do have a lot in common. And, obviously the network marketing industry, and we're not going to go too much into network marketing as much as the story. I think the coolest part of network marketing is that anyone can become someone in that industry, because you don't have to have a college education. You don't have to have a business background, and it teaches you so many things. And we meet so many incredible people that impact us for the rest of our life in that industry. And so I really wanted to talk to you today about your actual story. Where did you get started? Growing up in a small town, there's not a lot of options, and you don't get exposed. It's not like social media was around back when it wasn't. So
Thank God, too.
I know, thank God. I was in it too. I'm like, oh my God, thank God there was no social media back in my heyday, because it would have been bad. There would have been pictures. I would have been erasing. Like, oh my gosh. I like to have my drinks, back in the day, and I had fun. And I also, I was in the restaurant industry, so I was a server. So I started out in that. But I mean, I've always worked all my life. So I'm sure you can relate to that. But let's hear a little bit more about you. Kind of, where would you say your real story began?
Oh my gosh. I would say when I was a little girl, my dad left when I was 18, but growing up, my mom and dad were married, and just constant entrepreneurial. When I was little, my dad drove a cement truck and my mom was home, and I remember him like coming home for lunch break and them hugging and kissing goodbye, whatever, like back when life was just normal, I would say, I was probably second grade when my mom and dad started a trucking business and they had a dairy distribution company. And then, mom and dad would both be working and they started buying rental properties. And so, first they had 2, then they had 5, then they had 7, then they bought a Sonic drive-in, then they bought a grocery store. And I feel like my real lesson in life came when my parents were so busy making a living, servicing accounts. Dairy Queen would be out of mix, no ice cream. Then the schools would need milk, no milk. So we were always like running 100 miles an hour. And I was the oldest of 5. So they were never home. And I watched them start to have challenges, as life got busier. I always say they were so busy making a living, there was no time to make a life. And I was really raising my brothers and sisters. When I was 18, the littlest was 3. And on prom night, I was a candidate for queen, which was so crazy because I was redhead, freckle face, low self-esteem always. And I speak in a lot of schools about something that's not business because I made a lot of mistakes at like 12 to 15. My grandma was kind of my mentor. She passed away when I was 12 and I felt very unimportant. I felt the ugly girl, always got made fun of. Red hair was not cool until I was like in my 30s. Then everybody was dyeing their hair red. But growing up, I feel like I was always like bullied and teased. And my grandma died when I was 12. Mom and dad were never home now. Nobody was really around. And I was probably struggling for intimacy and feeling important and being popular. And I made a lot of mistakes based on what would make me feel important. Basically, like looking for love in all the wrong places is what I would say. And I was engaged and gonna marry this kid that I had literally, I could just say it. I lost my virginity when I was 12. And, my grandma was a staunch Baptist. We were in church all the time. I couldn't even wear fingernail polish or a short skirt. And then I really felt, once I knew what I had done, I really felt like not good. I just felt not confident about myself. And I was in a pretty abusive relationship, planning to get married. I guess you think you grow up, you're with this one person, you graduate, you're in a small town. This is the guy I should marry.
Totally.
I was engaged to be married on Christmas Eve. I was going to become Catholic for him. I was going to have 14 people in my bridal party. It was just all this. There wasn't even social media, but it was like doing whatever, I guess you could say, to get attention.
Sure.
And I look at girls today on social media and I'm like, my goodness, like I look at your Instagram, you're going to get a Bible and some clothes. Like, that's like what I would think looking at some of these girls. But honestly, if that was me growing up, it would have probably been me because they need the likes, they need the love, they need the attention because they're not getting it, self-love or from anyone else. So fast forward, I went to beauty school. My dad left my senior year. College was not an option. I was helping my mom raise 4 little ones. She lost the Lincoln Continental. She lost the big house. She lost the motorhome, lost the jet ski. She moved into a trailer house, one of like 50 rentals. And they slept 4 in a bed and all the clothes in the other bedroom. And it was just like so humbling to watch my mom cry at night, my little brother asking where dad was. And like I would go to beauty school and then go help her. And I was gonna stay in this town, start this little salon. And I got a call for a haircut one day when it had been a pretty rough, abusive night. And it's all in the book that I wrote. But
yeah,
I got a call for Dave Pitcock wanted a haircut. And I said, I can't cut your hair. Well, because I was trying to get to the lake where this boyfriend that was always cheating on me had all these girls on the boat, just to be quite honest. Like you're so insecure, you're like, I got to get there. You're constantly looking around to see like, am I going to get cheated on? Am I going to be loved? And Dave Pitcock wanted a haircut. He had had a horrible bull riding accident. We had went to high school together. And the whole story started, I cut his hair and he asked me to go to a Garth Brooks concert. We were both engaged in a small town where like you went to school together. Everybody knows this is your high school sweetheart.
Yeah.
And we literally broke off our engagements, like the most horrible thing you would think to do. And we ran away to Cody, Wyoming, which then was like a ghost town, like nobody was there. Now all the stars are moving there because it's desolate. But we ran away. We got pregnant before we were married and we got married and had 3 babies in 4 years. And I think we always joke everything was happening in 8-second increments, throw your
Yeah.
hat there and it's over. That's kind of our stage joke. But everything happened so fast. And I had learned to be an entrepreneur from my parents, growing up. I was
Yeah.
like, hey, why would you go to college? Like, you're going to work for someone? That was just like foreign to me. And we started a bunch of businesses. And that's where the bankruptcy.
Let's kind of back up a little bit and talk about, you hit a good topic that we're going to go into because I think it really applies to a lot of people. Shame comes in real quick for these
Mhm.
girls and guys. I mean, even guys have tons of shame. They just don't know how to handle it. So we were talking about being young, and I think about growing up in a small town for me as well. Like I, was very shy and I wanted to break free of it. So I started drinking and I started partying because I felt free from that. And so I started making really bad decisions. And I also was engaged at a very young age. I think it was 18. I was in high school engaged, 18,
Wow.
then go and get pregnant, have a baby. All of a sudden I'm engaged, married, pregnant. I ended up dating somebody in between. Like that was just, it was small town stuff, like I was dating somebody. I was kind of on the outs with my husband slash he wasn't my husband yet. It was so crazy. I was pregnant with his kid, but I was dating another person. It's like small town crazy stuff. And
So nowadays you could have been on Teen Mom.
yeah,
Back
exactly.
then you wouldn't be famous for it, right?
No, I wouldn't be famous.
Shamed.
So it's like, it's interesting because I had made this series of bad choices over bad choices. And I had so much shame and I felt so terrible because I loved my friend who I was dating. And I was so scared that I was doing the wrong thing, that I better marry this other man. Not that I didn't want to marry, not that I didn't care about him. Like that was the thing. It was like, well, I'm pregnant. We were engaged. Let's try to work on it because we had decided to break it off. I got pregnant. I didn't want to just rush and get pregnant or get married. But then I'm like, oh, I just made so many decisions and I wanted to have that family. I always wanted a family. And that's the part. That was the love part. I also raised a brother. I was left alone all the time. And I had parents that were there, but they were gone a lot. So it was like I was helping raise my brother. I was, I was so used to being alone that I was desperate to have that love and attention and need. And I wasn't attention seeking in ways where I see some of the girls now, I do see it. And it's a thing. And there's so much. Social media has brought things such to the forefront, and it's making it, it's magnifying it, but it's making it huge. And it's almost accepted, like, oh, go do this. Like,
And so much pressure.
it's so much pressure. And then you got to have the likes. And if you're not liked, and then the bullying, and you brought up bullying, like you add it, it's just like a million times worse because it's in everyone. It's not a small town now, because small town, you know what that's like. Everybody knows.
Oh my God. And once you've made one mistake, it's like they're never forgetting it.
Oh,
Like things that we did in 1996, people will talk about in 2021.
Oh, it still happens. Yeah.
It's like we never changed. But the reality is, I think in school, they don't teach you. And I speak in a lot of schools. I started a nonprofit years ago and I didn't continue it because it became such a responsibility. But my real heart was just to help girls that were broken and have them have a line that, you could be there. And then when I started speaking in schools, I realized it's like the majority of them, and they don't feel important. When I first started speaking in schools, it was a lot of cutting. Like cutting was the biggest problem. And I think if I was to go back and ask, like, what's the biggest problem? It's narcotics. It's eating disorders and pills, and like they're doing whatever they can do because they want to get away from the pain. And I think, when I was growing up, I did have a grandma that gave me a strong faith, thank God, because somehow I always would fall back on that foundation. But I don't see that nowadays either. It's like a lost art. I wish I had 5 lifetimes because there's so many things. I always tell Dave, like, we should start a church that's online for these young kids. We should do this. And today, after our conversation, I was like, we should start a camp. Like, we should try to mend these people, and like, there's so much that you go through that at the time you don't realize that it's temporary. fast forward years down the road when Dave and I weren't a failure, there was just an instant in our life where we had achieved the greatest success and yet we had the worst pain. And he lost his only brother to suicide. And it was, just like you said, the drinking, the masking the pain, self-medicating and feeling shame. He had made some bad decisions and there was a court date coming up and, just one thought, it was just a temporary situation that turned into a permanent decision. And I think so many people could relate to you and I, like they're going through hell and they don't realize this is just a chapter. It's not their entire lifetime, but how do you give people hope? Whether it's their finances or addiction or whatever it is.
It's crazy because you brought up your grandma. My grandma was extremely crucial in my life. She was the matron. She held it together. She had such a strong faith. She's devout Catholic. When she sang in the church, you could hear her. She had the most beautiful voice, and she was so incredible in our family. And I was blessed to have that. I was blessed to have that stable heart. And I did have, like, even my parents, so many things. They were great parents. They were parents and dealing with their own shit. I mean, to say it like that is they were dealing
like most parents.
Like parents. And now that I look at it, I used to be really against my mom for so long because she was battling so much trauma and so much stuff that she wasn't letting me know because she's my mother. She had to protect us. And now that I know it, she's in her 60s and I'm going, I never knew that. And now I look at her in a different light. Like, she got us through some crazy times that I can't even believe we made it through. And I was looking at her like she didn't do enough or do a good job. And it's like, no, that's not true. She's a warrior. But we're all battling it. Everybody's got trauma. Everyone. It doesn't matter where you come from. Big town, small town, rich, poor. It doesn't matter. There is trauma everywhere. There is abuse everywhere. There is substance abuse everywhere. There's addiction and pain and sexual abuse. And the thing is that, when I think about these kids and these girls, especially girls, it's like, I wish I could show you what's coming. Like, I wish I could show you how much more power you actually have and the choices, because you can change it with some key things that I think it's so important. But there's so many people running around right now and there's no faith. So there's two things that I see. The family dynamic is gone. It's been gone for a long time. There's not many two people homes. If they are, they're broken as broke. They're both trying to work though. You have two people working, some of them 2 jobs each. Yeah. And so how can they raise these kids the way they need to be raised? I'm not putting anyone down because I come from a broken home. I've been divorced twice. I know what that's like. And it was hustle, hustle, hustle. We got to do this. We got to do this. And then, you work so hard and then you stop when you did this, when you hustle in this way and you stop and you look, you're like, what am I doing this for? Yeah. And you really have to reassess. And I think having no faith, I see so many people walking around with no faith. I don't even mean you have to believe in God. I mean in anything. They don't believe in the universe. They don't believe in a higher power. They're walking around. But what I also see is a huge shift in the awakening, and people are going back to it. But we just had a really long period of time where it was like, I don't believe in anything. Well, that's insane, because if you don't believe in anything, what are you doing? You don't think there's something greater than you out here? You need to start looking around. It's everywhere. You are filled with abundance. You are filled with everything around you. Who do you think gave that to you? What do you think gave that to you? What's giving this energy? And I think people are starting to wake up. And I think the last 2 years have really shown that. I think the last 2 years made people slow down, sit back, and start really evaluating what's important to them. Many people hadn't had dinner at the dinner table ever.
I feel like the pandemic was the greatest year of my life.
Me too.
I mean, we had everyone home. Like my kids, I have 3 grandkids in Arizona, and they're calling like the baby was new. Like, there's no milk, there's no chicken. Like, what if they closed down the highways? I was like, get in your car and drive. Like, everybody just grabbed a bag, and we're out here in the middle of Kansas where there's, pastures full of cows and chickens, and like everything would be, safe. And my daughter lives in Tulsa. She runs a retail store, and like they closed, and she brought a duffel bag, and Chance brought, a girl and 3 kids. And my oldest daughter is here, was working in our office at the company, and we were all in one house for 53 days. Now, to them, I know it was hell. They were like, we got to get our businesses back open. We came here with sweatpants. And I was like, we should get a family picture. And they're all looking around like, the salons are closed. And we came here with weekend outfits. We didn't know we were staying, 3 months. But I look back on that, the meals, the conversations, the board games, the prayer. Like, people don't get on their knees until they're afraid, until they're broken, until their little bit of uncertainty happens. And, what we thought was going to be horrible ended up to be really a blessing. And I think down the road, when kids write their more of their life, growing up, they're never going to forget 2020, because, that was the year where they went and stayed or didn't see. Some people didn't see grandparents, and it was the exact opposite. It was a nightmare, grandparents that didn't see their babies, and, families that didn't gather for Christmas. Like, I don't know, we were all kind of stuck here together, but I feel sorry for the ones that were on the opposite end. But we did all learn a lot from that. And the greatest thing is what we're doing right now, Shylo. Like, this Zoom thing, oh my gosh. I was the girl that was on the road speaking in a different hotel, different living room. Like, I thought these people that were trying to bring it all, home were out of their mind, because I was a personal touch girl.
Yeah.
Man, when I embraced the system of, being online, it really exploded all of our businesses. I'm thankful for that.
It did. And I think it opened up the world to just a new way. Like, there's things that I don't love about technology. It's a blessing and a curse, but there's things that there's no way we could have handled this 20 years ago.
No.
I think about when I was in school, I'm like, we would have failed school. This wouldn't happen. We wouldn't have been able to get through this. And now I just look like we have food delivered. We have such conveniences. We don't have to ever, if you want to stay home, you can. If you want to leave, you can. I mean, there's the limitations, of course, but there was a lot in that whole time period that I learned to appreciate. I took it as, and I say this all the time, entrepreneurs rose up from it, because so many new things were created. People were creative. There was no excuse. There was no excuse to do nothing. You could have learned a language. You could have done anything you wanted to do, because we have the technology to do it right from home. It's not like before. And so we saw so many entrepreneurs come up and rise. Businesses exploded, in our space, for real. And the ones who were set up properly, totally. But it also forced people to get set up properly. And I think we're coming into a new age of just multiple 8-figure earners. I think you're going to start seeing more billionaires than ever, which is crazy, but you're really going to start seeing more 7- and 8-figure earners in all spaces, because of the technology and because of what we had to shift and pivot. It's all about the pivot. It's all about learning new things. And we were forced to learn new things. And I think it was a blessing. So you had your kids home. What would you say was, besides having them home, what would you say that you would give to somebody if somebody asked you, what was the biggest blessing of that time in your life? Was the biggest blessing besides having your kids home?
Gosh, I can think of so many. Well, we all gained a lot of weight. That would be what wasn't a blessing. Because I cooked like it was Thanksgiving, for 3 months, and that was my happy space. But we were launching a new company at the time on 316. I wanted to pray about it. I wanted to make sure, and we're in the manufacturing industry as well. So I had a lot of markets where I would go, like Dallas, Vegas, Atlanta, Miami, wherever, the American Beauty Show, where we would have like 125,000 salon owners. And, that was really like our traditional bread and butter. And all of a sudden, no markets for a year and a half, but I still had the overhead. We own retail stores, CBD and aromatherapy, essential oil retail stores in malls. All the malls closed,
Yeah.
I think the biggest takeaway was that my children saw us not panic. And we taught them why we live below our means. We've had a lot of success, but we still live in the same little town. I always buy my cars used. My husband doesn't, but I always buy used car. I always live below my means. And I think, the biggest thing that came out of it was that we found a way to work from home, do everything from this device, and reach all of those people without having to buy the flight, rent the hotel room, go to the seminar, do the big market. I mean, my traditional business, we would have 20 to 30,000 in a weekend show. And all of a sudden we were learning, like, how do we communicate? And even the company that we were launching, our partner is in Dallas. And I was like on my way there. It was my birthday weekend. My daughter's boyfriend plays basketball, and it was the big, Sweet 16 tournament was coming. I remember so vividly, we were in the car, my birthday weekend, headed to Dallas, and Dave was like, we need to turn around. They're canceling it. Well, I'm a blue personality. I'm like, we're not canceling it. It's my birthday. Like, we're going no matter what they say. They're not good, And I guess I felt such uncertainty that I had to learn a way to adapt, or we would be bankrupt. Like, we had to learn a way to adapt. And most people that didn't learn how to adapt are not around anymore. And the people that are still resisting it, they're really, really struggling, because the person that went on social selling, Instagram, created a VIP group, did their mass emails, or, something that they could reach the people, their businesses exploded. And honestly, Shylo, I don't know about you, but it was our biggest year ever in the industry. And I thought we were going to lose it all. And I couldn't afford to lose it all again, because like you and I talked earlier, I had lost a 7-figure income overnight 4 years ago. And I was just, getting back, building up, and then just bam. Right. And I was like, I can't take another hit.
No, I remember that same feeling. And I didn't panic though. Like I remember calling one of my biggest leaders, and I was like, let's just see how this goes. Because we were set up, our company was set up for this. I mean, we were all online. So I was like, well, this is good, but I don't know what people are going to do in the market. And it was,
I admire that about you guys. I've always followed you and a lot of, the people in your company, and I've done their academies and met them at the A&MP or whatever. And I always was like, how do they do that? And I remember that year, I was sitting at the Most Powerful Women event, not that year and a half before that, the spring before the spring. But I had been terminated from a company where I was a multi-million-dollar earner. I didn't really want to start over, but my husband had a friend that was starting a company, which was part of the reason for my termination. Long story short, I hated the industry. I was like, this is not happening to me again. When I was 23, we joined a company. We got our income to where we were 40, 50,000 a month. A big NFL player bought the company. A 17-year-old company bankrupted in less than a year.
Yep.
I was too young to know that we were going to be okay. I was freaking out. We start over, we start our own company, merge it with this huge company. Then they terminate me. And I was like, I'm never starting over again. Like, I'm not doing this again. And so we had gotten into this traditional industry where I was like, I will be the boss. I'm never trusting anyone ever again, and it was booming because we were in the CBD manufacturing industry, and we were actually manufacturing for MLM companies and essential oils and stuff. So when I went to, and you were on the stage, I didn't want to go. And a friend of mine, Vanessa, called, and she said, I have a ticket. It's a VIP ticket, and you're coming. And, some of the speakers were from the company that I had been terminated from.
Sure.
It wasn't comfortable. I was trying to be forgiving. I was trying to not be resentful. And we were in a nasty, nasty lawsuit, which that kind of comes with the industry, like people who think they own you, and that.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sitting there and I'm watching like you, Margie, Denny, Martine, like all these women that I didn't really know. And they're like, ATM your face off and do your VIP group. And I went live, and I'm in the front row, and I'm an old-fashioned belly to belly type girl at the time. This is 3 years ago. I mean, I was on Facebook, but my business wasn't on Facebook. Like in Kansas, we would have 200-300 people at barbecues, or, we would go rent a hotel room or whatever. But the reality was I would drive 4 hours to Kansas City or 5 to Denver, because there's not a city like, here's Russell. Denver's 5 hours that way. Kansas City's 4 hours that way, 3 hours to an airport. So as you can imagine, all I ever did was drive. We just lived in the car.
Yeah.
And when I was listening to all of you, and your company really embraces that, adding, tagging, messaging, social selling, and your product works well with that. The company I was in, it really would have been kind of tough because it wasn't simple. It was very confusing. I was so envious of like, this girl's been in this company for 2 years and she's making what? Like, I have been in the industry for 22 years, 25 years. And I was like, there's no way, they've got to be lying. And I was seeing all these new faces and new techniques. And honestly, Shylo, I was not ready to adapt because I was so stuck in my old way of thinking. I loved my people. I wanted to have the meeting. I wanted to do the party. Why would I not have a Saturday training,
Right.
And until I saw the validation of the income. And then I was like, you're a moron if you're not going to change. Like, I wasn't going to change. And as I saw it, I called my husband and I said, these women, like, they're up here in Converse. Like, I was always dressed for success in a St. John suit.
Right.
These girls are in miniskirts. I'm like, your mom let you leave the house in that? Get on the stage? Like, I was freaking out. Like, everything that I had learned, dress for success, make sure you have blue and white, like red, whatever. No, everything that I believed about the industry was like proven on that stage, that these girls in miniskirts, torn up jeans, very not professional, normal, traditional, they were killing it. And they were breaking records over what I could do. And I remember you, and I just remember a few people, what they were wearing, what they said. I still have the little notebook right here on this shelf. And I came home and my husband said, so how was it? How was your weekend with Vanessa? And I said, oh, it was good. There was a lot of good speakers. But Shylo, I still didn't want to do it. Like, I was so broken and I didn't trust anyone. I really think I was just done with the industry. And it took me some time to get my dreams back, to get my goals back, to really like want to do it. And then once that little fire was ignited, everything lined up. But you can't push someone to that. It's all part of the peaks and valleys.
Well, it's interesting because I used to watch certain people and I say this lovingly. I'm like, this person's a hot mess express. How are they doing this? I used to say the same thing. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And not being mean, I don't think I'm better. But I think what was bothering me is, how are they doing this? I'm trying so hard.
Me too.
That was my problem. It wasn't them. It was they openly are like, I don't care. And they're wearing, like you said, I'm like, this person, like the way they act on social media, and people loved it.
I know.
Here was why, because I was so scared. So here's the biggest part of that story. I was filtering many parts of my life and they just let it all out. And I could
authentic.
I couldn't be fully vulnerable, even though I was vulnerable, or I was authentic in so many other ways. I couldn't show the pain of a child going through something. I couldn't show a broken marriage. I couldn't show that I was struggling with alcohol. And so then I was like, I can never be my full self. And so what COVID did is it broke me to my core. Although we had a great year, I mean, it was great in so many ways. I broke during COVID and I had my moment and I came out of it. And I finally, after quitting drinking, I was like, now I can be that person who I've always wanted to be and not have to filter anything, because I'm not afraid to say it anymore. I'm not afraid, because that was my thing. I'm like, this is my one thing. I can't let people see that ugly devil because it's killed so many people in my family. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to show people. And so for me, I used to say the same thing. And the other part of it is, change is hard. Like when we're looking, we're like, but I'm trying so hard and I'm going to do this and I don't want to change, because what if I change and I fail? Yeah. What if I change and I can't do what this girl's doing or this guy's doing? And that was the fear for me. So I totally relate in the
I think your belief comes from the confidence that's worked for you. It's always about what we did 20 years ago, what we did 15 years ago, what we did 10 years ago. And I just wasn't good at it. I wasn't good at it because I had never tried it before. But Shylo, the thing that I think in, alcoholism, my dad was one of 7. He's the only one that is not an addict. Suicide, prison, rehab, you name it. My grandma on my dad's side, I don't know how she got through it all. And, then on my mom's side, it was completely different. There wasn't all of the addiction and all of that. They all were, very faith-based, and they all never had a lot of addiction or jail or any of that. And I saw it, the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. I always say I should have wrote a book called Good Grandma, Bad Grandma, because I learned like so much from both sides.
Yep.
And then I tried to raise my kids in a way that I thought like this is the way that I should do it. This is the way my good grandma did it. And it doesn't matter, because all of us go through whatever we go through. I'm sure when your mom was raising you, she never thought, oh, Shiloh's going to struggle with alcohol. And I'm sure my grandma never thought that I would ever do anything before I was married to a man. Like I feel like all of us have our own soul plan. And I've been reading a lot about this. And it's hard because it's hard for us to watch people struggle and go through what they're going through. But look at your story, Shylo. And I mean, what was it for you that I'm curious, because addiction has probably caused more pain in our life. Dave lost his only brother to suicide, and his dad was a 3-time loser at rehab and finally got it right the 4th time. And, one of my good friends, my youngest daughter, cheered at Kansas State for 4 years, and her best friend from high school and cheered with her at K-State. The mom and I were like this, and she's in rehab right now. And I just visited her last week, and like, she's the most beautiful, talented, amazing mom and woman and grandma. And like you said, it's just a devil that she fights every day. How did you do it? How did you just get better?
I know support, going through the right channels, finding people who can walk me through 12 steps, can do the things with me. I think the other thing was for my kids. I had to show my kids that this can be broken. I grew up around alcoholism everywhere I looked. I always say, shake the tree. It's going to fall out. Like they're going to fall out. Mental illness and alcoholism, here we come. And
Yeah.
I always avoided it. I always thought I wouldn't do that because I watched my dad kill himself with alcohol. And I thought, no, I know better. I know. And I went through a lawsuit, and that lawsuit broke me to the core. But here's the cool thing about that lawsuit, and the cool thing about some of this stuff. I wouldn't change it for the world. I needed to be broken. I needed to fall on my face. I needed to have God show me, this is it, girl. Like, you either change or it's over. I was killing myself. I did not even recognize myself. I was so depressed. And if anyone's ever been through lawsuits, and you have, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And it just
wins except the attorney.
Yeah. The attorneys win. And so it wasn't, I'm not even angry about it. But what it did is that old Shylo did die. But the new Shylo came out of it. And who I saw, even in the first few months, I was like, this is the first time I felt truly happy ever.
Wow.
And that was something I had never felt. And I probably struggled with depression, not severe depression, but I definitely struggled with it. And that social anxiety. Here we are talking on stages, and I had, I had all these things.
I would never have thought that.
No, but I was afraid of public speaking. I had social anxiety. I used alcohol to get me through it. And when you start to learn, like, oh, it's that, but then it started to cause more problems than it ever helped. It never helped you. It never helped me. And so it was one of those things where it was for my kids, because they had grown up around it enough to see it. And I'm like, not this time. These kids need to see. And for my oldest daughter, for sure, I wanted to show her, this is possible. This is possible for you. It's possible for everybody. And I'm going to show you, because I'm going to do this. So I did it for myself and my kids. And I wanted to break the generational curse, because it's important for my brother, for my mother, to everybody to see that it can be done. Because my brother said something so profound to me. I said, I've never believed in 12-step programs or anything like that. And he's like, well, yeah, because everyone who ever tried in our family, or we knew, never made it. Like, no one ever completed it. It doesn't mean the program is wrong. It means, it was just what was going on, And I think it's really interesting when it's like, I never gave it a shot. I wasn't going to change. I avoided it for so long, but because it was on Zoom meetings, I said, yes, Zoom meetings, because we shifted so much, because we couldn't have in-person meetings. I would have never gone to an in-person meeting, ever. No, I'm going to in-person. I'm not going to an in-person meeting, right? Like, that was my attitude. Well, I'll do that and save my life. And it's turned so many things around, and to have support and to have people that love me, and to know that I'm not the only one going through the things I'm going through now that I'm sober and have other things and people in my life that deal with the same stuff. I need support there too. It's like, gosh, I'm trying to, do my best at sobriety and I feel good, but you're challenged. Like when you have to feel the pain,
Oh my gosh.
you have to feel the pain.
Yeah. And not have anything to meld it over. I can't even imagine. And you've had such a year. You've had such a year.
Yeah, divorce.
So you did not go to in treatment. You didn't go to treatment for like 30 days. You did it on your own at home on Zoom.
Yeah.
Wow.
But see,
My hats off to you.
when we talk about the technology and what it did, that shifted that world. So the world of recovery expanded massively because as the world was at home, alcoholism, drug abuse went through, mental illness. I mean, we're battling mental illness on a level the world has never seen. Mental illness and addiction right now is so crazy. But on the flip, so many people are recovering. Look at what's happening in Hollywood and in society. And now it's becoming cool to be sober. That was not the theme even up till 2 years ago. It was not the theme. Alcohol was glamorized, drugs glamorized. Everybody's on drugs. And now I'm looking at it and there's sober bars opening up all over. My girlfriend wants to open one up with me. I'm like, actually, it's a good idea. It is just
such a good idea.
Play pool, watch the game, still be in an environment with people without
But not have to. That's genius.
Isn't
We
it?
need that in my town. I feel like we are the alcohol capital of Kansas.
All small towns are.
It's crazy. And my son was a D1 player, a football player. And I remember him saying to me when he was leaving a school and he became an entrepreneur, actually joined network marketing. He said, Mom, if I stay here, I'm going to be on pills. And I can remember thinking like, what? Like it was such a smack to me. I never thought that, but he actually opened a nonprofit for suicide awareness because of his closeness to Dave's brother, and he's a clothing designer. And, he went through a horrible depression after leaving K-State football and then tried Fort Hayes and again was like, I can't do this. And, now every day he just talks about exactly what you said. How do we deal with the pain of regret? How do we not turn to drugs and alcohol? Like I'll say things like, I'm sorry you're going through that. It's tough. They're raising little kids and they're entrepreneurs. And he'll be like, but you know what? I'm not going to go take a drug. I'm not going to go get high. I'm not going to get wasted. And it's, like you said, I love that Justin Bieber put his story out there, why he went through what he went through. I love that, there's things like Dope Sick, there's documentaries and things that are coming out that are explaining to people so we don't judge. We don't put a label and say, oh, this person is a terrible person or a loser, because I think we're also, those of us who haven't had addiction are learning that it is something that those people don't want to be that person. I'm sure you didn't ever want to be the mom that was drunk or addicted. It's just that how do you get from where you were to where you are today? And Shylo, we can do 10 of these where we can have every chapter of the book, because we can't even we can't even share our whole story on a little Zoom like this.
No, but here's the cool part as we'll kind of summarize, and I want to highlight what you're doing in your projects because it's important that people know where they can find you, what you're doing, and why you have so many things going on. You're incredible in the industry, you're an incredible woman, mom, all the things. And I look up to you as well. And so it's just important for people to understand that really what it's rooted in is the trauma and what we're not dealing with. And most people don't want to go through the pain of dealing with the pain. But when you stop and actually just go through it and you start to heal it, it's layers. It doesn't happen overnight. It's years. I mean, I see people 30 years that haven't had a drink. They're still going through it though. It never stops. You got to keep going. And it's evolving. But what we're doing is we're digging in. And my big thing on this show and what I preach is normalize trauma. Quit making it a thing. Everybody's got trauma. Talk about your sexual trauma. It's safe. We're safe here. Maybe don't go blast it to people you don't know, but at the same time, don't be afraid. Like I tell people all the time, oh yeah, I grew up like this and this and this, and I laugh and I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think what my life is, I'm not a victim. I'm like, no, I went through trauma and I didn't deal with it right. I have shame. Almost everybody has shame. Almost everybody had something that happened to them. I don't care where they're from or what they did, but we need to normalize the trauma conversation like we're doing. Like, just talk about it. I went through hell. I had this. I have sick, family members. I got divorced twice. Am I proud of that? Not proud of it, but at the same time, I'm proud of how hard I worked. I'm proud of how hard I worked on my marriage. And my kids can see that. And what's important to me is my kids do not have filters. I do not filter myself. They know what's going on. I communicate with them, and I'm proud of that. And I think if more people could just keep the open communication, learn how to communicate better, communication is everything, we would be better. And I think that's my mission, is to normalize trauma, start talking about it, open up, and make everything a safe space. The world is a safe space. We need to make it a safe space because we are all in a healing moment. This is a healing time. So that's my 2 cents on that. But I am just so grateful you came on last minute. This has been, we could keep going all night. Like, seriously, I looked at the time, I'm like, I could go all night.
Oh my gosh.
You have written, and your husband have written books. You said you had a nonprofit. Where can people find you, and what is your next project? What are you really looking for? You also are an owner of an amazing company. So talk about that real quick. Where can people find you and connect with you?
So we own a private label bottling company, and we are both authors. We do a lot of speaking and training, but we haven't done as much speaking and training lately, generically, because we did launch a direct sales company on 3/16 of 20. And that's just been amazing. And this is not about recruiting, so I don't want to go into the company and all of that. But what I would say to you, Shylo, is that right now, I feel like this project, I love that you're saying normalize trauma, because we have had some of our biggest years in business, and never have I ever felt as much pain and just broken heart and like soul searching and like trying to figure out like, why am I in this chapter? And when you were talking earlier about a generational curse, like I am constantly like, I am breaking that. Like, there is no way that I am going to let the enemy stop me right now. But I feel like the last 4 to 5 years and this wrongful termination that I felt I should fight for, because I was $1 million earner. Now 4 years later and all the ugliness and whatever, I've taken myself like out, just trying to look from like a bird's eye view. How must they have felt? What can I learn from this? Neither one of us are going to win. So it wasn't a good fit. Maybe they didn't like me. Maybe I was supposed to move forward. God's going to bless me 10 times, for everything that I lost. It's the patience, Shylo, that we have to have during that time, when if we just knew everything was going to be okay, we wouldn't have had so many sleepless nights or ended up with a terminal illness or whatever, because that stress, that trauma that you're talking about that people don't know how to deal with, it's so hard. And I think the biggest challenge, right now in this chapter of my life is really like, you raise your kids when they're young, but then raising adult children and just leading them in a way that you want them to have happiness, success, freedom, a healthy life. And it's just such a messed up world. It's just such a messed up world. So I love what you're doing. My next project, I have some really big dreams and I need 5 lifetimes to live it. But honestly, if I had to think what I would do right now with all the money in the world, I would probably open a center to help put families back together that are struggling with opiate addiction, heroin, alcohol, whatever, because things keep showing up in my life that I'm like, God, why is this showing up? From little until today, Dave losing his brother, my dad lost his only brother. And I just feel like if there was a way to give people hope, to say like, this is not going to be forever. Like, what can we do now to just get to the next step, And I love what you're doing. I feel like together with our stories combined, you've been through so many things that I've never been through. I cannot imagine losing a husband in a divorce twice. I don't even know how you're still standing, but what an amazing mom. I feel like your kids are probably seeing you fall and get back up and fall and get back up. And honestly, that teaches them more than just seeing a mom have success. So our kids have definitely seen us struggle and get back on top. And I love the name of your new group. I was like, oh my gosh, a comeback queen. Isn't that what we all want to be?
Yes.
So thank you so much. You really had a huge impact on my life this morning when we were in a Zoom room, and I can't wait to get to know you better. But thank you for having me on your show, and anything I can ever do to empower another woman or man, I would love to be able to share. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And this has been an incredible episode. And thank you everybody for tuning in. I am Shylo Bijold. This was Barb Pitcock. You can find her. We'll drop the links in below and we'll catch you on the next one.